Now let's get in the most impactful exercise that I've ever known, family dynamics. Once you do this exercise, how you look at your family is going to change. Not only that, but how you feel about them is also going to change. So let's proceed. We all know we did not grow up in perfect families. When we are under stress and not totally centered, most of us have a way of reacting to situations. We can be a blamer who is constantly blaming everybody else for what is going on in their life. A pleaser who is trying to please everyone around so that they can have peace. Someone very super reasonable or self-righteous who thinks they are always correct. And we also could be somebody like totally irrelevant, a person who does not care about anything. You see, a totally irrelevant person is constantly probably dancing around the situation or issue. Does it ring a bell? Do you know somebody like that? Or there could be a pleaser who would try to please everyone so that they can have peace, but they will have very low self-esteem. Or the blamer who constantly thinks it's never their fault. The fault is of always other person and everybody around, including God. And a super reasonable one who thinks nobody else but they themselves are correct. That's how their postures are, and that's how they look like when they talk or behave. We all use these methods of reacting to life when we are not centered and clear. Now, I want you to go back and look at this picture, and I want you to write down who you are, what kind of a person you are. Are you totally irrelevant? Are you the pleaser? Are you the blamer? Or are you a super reasonable one who always thinks that I'm correct? Go ahead, write that down in your journal. It's going to be a big revelation for you today. Once you do that, now I would like you to list the family members you have lived with before the age of 5 and become aware of what was their behavior preferences as per the chart shared. So I want you to look at these 4 pictures over here and write down the name of everybody that you have lived with, starting from your mom, dad, siblings, anybody who you lived with before the age of 5. Because that's when you had picked up so many patterns from your environment. And thus, it's important to know what was your environment like. So probably you may figure out today that your father was a pleaser, or maybe your mother was one. Or maybe one of your parents was a super righteous or a blamer. Maybe one of your grandparents was totally irrelevant, or maybe some of your siblings or aunts or uncles. Whoever you have lived with. If you were in a joint family, you may have 10 people to list down. If you were a nuclear family, you may have 3, 4, or 5 people to list down. So list down each and every person whom you have lived with only before the age of 5. You do not have to write about anybody else who were just visiting. Maybe an uncle or aunt who may be coming on vacation. Maybe somebody who stayed there for a while and went away. No, you just have to list down the people you have literally lived with for more than 6 months or a year before the age of 5. Because these are the people who has impacted who you are the most. All right, let's move forward. Now, when you list them down and write down who exactly they are like, does it make you aware of why as to people behave the way they did? Now I want you to go to each family member in your mind and ask them anything you want to. Ask or tell them anything you want to from your childhood experiences. For example, Mom, why did you? So whatever you want to ask her. Or I never understood why. To anybody that you want to ask, maybe to your father, to your brother, to your sister, to your cousin, to your uncle, aunts, anybody that comes to your mind, you can just go ahead and ask the question. It can be a very overwhelming process if you had been through some rough patch in your life. And you may really encounter certain emotions that you had tried to not deal with and suppress it within. This is your time to talk them out. Also, allow the family member to reply in their own way, in your mind. You do not have to justify, agree, or argue with them. It's just for you get an answer or a closure. Once you have done that, I encourage you to do with each and every family member that you are with. To some of them, you would just maybe want to say, I know how much you love me and I thank you for that. And to some of them, you may really need to forgive. So I want you to imagine everyone in a circle surrounded by violet light. Yes, the violet color light. If you can say to each one, thank you for being a part of my becoming the person I am, and I forgive you for. Try and see if you want to do this, if you feel comfortable, if you are willing to forgive or not. Take your own time. You can pause the video over here and just be in this space and do the needful right now. And when you have completed your family, please place your hand over your heart space, keeping your eyes closed. It is easier to understand your dynamics in relationships now and where they came from. Whatever you learned about love as a child is what you grew up to expect. Now take a few moments and then open your eyes when you are ready. Take some deep breaths.